name and who
Well,
you are.
All right, I'm Josh D, and I've been growing OG for most of my life. We're on 28 years now. We're bringing this variety back to Florida with my new partners, the Flowery. This is the best representation I've seen of OG Kush anywhere in the country, and they must have. They impressed me, man, all day, and you know, what else can I say except I'm honored to be a part of this gang. Kush was made in Florida, probably from California genetics. I'm out here growing, and my roommate says, hey, I got this weed from Florida that was growing in Gainesville, and you know, you gotta try it. It's like, if we're gonna do this, like, you gotta at least try to grow this weed. And so he did. He brought out a couple varieties, one called Bubba, one called Kush. That first year, we accidentally dried back the Bubba a little bit too hard, and it threw off some male flowers, and we ended up with a couple seeds, and those seeds actually became Bubba Kush.
What happens next? How did it become one of the most prominent names associated with cannabis worldwide?
I mean, like, I think it's a number of things happened. I think Prop 215 in California passed in 95 or 96. It allowed for some sort of medical grow, medical defense. So you had hydroponics, a couple different manufacturers like Hydrofarm, Sunlight Supply, Diamond, and another company in Canada called Bell Lighting, or Washington Hoods, they call them. Those things are new. I mean, before that, people were using like street lights. They were climbing up and like stealing street lights that have a ballast built into it and using those indoor, and they have these giant heavy lights, and it was ridiculous. Yeah, if you see those yellow lights, those are HPS, right? And there would be metal halides too. But these things were not for, you know, they were not really for, like to put in your house. But you know, so I mean, there was a lot of things I feel like came together at that moment. My desire to do this, Matt bringing OG to the table, the fact that I was already connected and had a network I've been building for years of people that were in the weed game. When we first pulled down our first couple crops, you could tell right away that we had like something extremely special. All the best weed was coming from Northern California. They would bring down their weed from NorCal and they would sell it for top dollar where I lived. And we were producing nothing. So like we were just a bunch of middlemen in California, in LA. And this gave us an opportunity to actually be farmers. And you could hide, even in an apartment building. A house was preferable, but you could set up a 4-lighter, 4 600s, and you could put an AC in the window, and you could reek up the whole neighborhood, and you'd have to negotiate with your neighbors, or you'd have to figure it out, because this is before like carbon filters were even, you know, on the market. And everybody had like a really funny way to mask the smell, but it wasn't covering shit. Everybody knew what was up. I mean, I grew in an apartment. I was growing OG, I was growing Bubba, and this was on the corner of Franklin and Cahuenga, which is a block and a half from the 101 freeway coming into Hollywood in LA. And I would talk to people after, and they'd be like, bro, you are reeking up the whole, all the way to the freeway, I can smell you, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, you know, we're so fucked. But we were like in Hollywood, kind of in a grimy part where across the street, these Colombians are selling coke and these other people selling heroin, and we were all like looking out. I was like, oh, we're cool. And like, you know, we had some issues, but we never got jacked. Nobody ever said anything except my neighbors, like, God damn, man, like, this is crazy. Like, what are you doing, you know? And it's like, just hang on, you know? I'm a medical patient. This is before any dispensary was out. I'm 23, 24, 25, and I wanted to figure out how to bring cannabis to LA because there was a void where it was hard to get good weed. And the only really good weed was expensive. If you're a dealer in LA back then, you know that you buy chronic at top dollar to really just break even so you can get some smoke, and you were selling stress and making money that way. You could break down a pound of stress at 250 bucks a pound, and you could make, you know, it's kind of like how we made money.
Define stress.
Stress is like brick Mexican weed, okay? So brick Mexican weed at that time was going for $200 to $400 a pound. Filled with seeds, filled probably with pesticides. You know, this is not something that is like desirable to smoke. But back when we were young, we smoked it because shit, we used to scrape. Everybody who knows and is watching this is from my generation knows. We'd have metal pipes, we would scrape the resin, we would smoke the resin. No way. Yeah, I mean, it's like, and we were still kind of stoked, because culturally, it worked. This went with like the rock and roll scene with the anti-establishment, like fuck you to the man. We smoke weed, and in LA, we just smoke it openly. Like I had a dream one day, we were just gonna smoke fucking weed and everybody was gonna accept it. And if enough of us did it, we wouldn't get busted. Or if enough of us did it, like that was it. And if enough of us did it at that time, we would actually have good varieties of weed that I was like thinking, I can only grow so much. I mean, to me, like 4 lights in a house was max. And I would get my best friends, hey, all my friends actually, especially I have a lot of artist friends, hey man, you gotta check it out. I'm making a killing like this. Let me set you up. And I had this whole business plan where I'd set people up in their apartment or in their house. I would build out a 4-lighter and we would split it for 6 months, and then I would give them the business, but I wanted to move the product. That's essentially how I turned on my entire crew, and like that's how it started to gain momentum. Now I have, multiple grow houses, and then, we had rules to this, but there were, we governed ourselves. There were community rules, like don't give it out to anybody. They gotta have what it takes to not kind of abuse what we're teaching them. Because it was like teaching somebody how to make a living. When weed's going for 5,000 a pound to 8,000 a pound or more, this is like, you can do a lot with a 4-lighter. There's been a lot of music produced and a lot of amazing things were created from this new wealth that was made from a new economy. It was a brand new economy, indoor growing. We had a piece of that. I had my piece, and it's kind of why I call my brand the OG Kush story, because my story started in '96. The Kush obviously probably started in '91, '92. I've traced it back to some guys here. I pretty much know the Florida story now. And it's interesting, but Kush didn't become like OG Kush, like well known in all the music studios, everybody had to have it kind of thing until it hit Los Angeles. Los Angeles had that ability, but that came from us. That is ultimately, like if you heard a Kush in '98, '99, that came from our crew. And when we added OG to it, that was expressing that it came from like one of us. And I didn't get a piece of everybody. I never wanted that. Like it was just good enough for me to hook my homies up. I had this other fetish, which was like eating well, okay? So I like to go out. I wanted to eat where my parents took me. My dad like knows all the Italian restaurants in LA and all the chefs. I'm 17 going to all the best restaurants, 18, I'm dealing. By the time I'm 19, dude, like I had a goal. I said, maybe we'll just eat wherever we want to eat. We'll bring everybody and we'll just enjoy this. We have the best weed to smoke. Eventually I figured, hey, you know what? We're gonna have better weed because of this. I know people are gonna cross OG to their favorite variety. I literally had no idea that it would remain as popular as it was year after year. There were a lot of people that needed it on the medical side for their well-being. So, when I was like, man, I didn't even know I was gonna grow weed for the rest of my life, kind of obsession. But what really influenced me and motivated me were the numerous people that I would meet, and they'd come up and be like, dude, you're the one, you have the Kush? And he's like, bro, that changed my life. I had this condition and it helped me through it. Or, I've tried everything in the book from modern medicine and every doctor, and I can't figure it out. But that weed is different, and it really touches me, and it's special. And when it's on a medicinal level, people are literally looking at you in your eye with like a love, like, thank you, and I'm like, that's enough to motivate you to continue on regardless of your setbacks or your situation, or, being a steward to this plant. Having a vision, like in LA, I was like, man, if everybody just had access to this weed, like if they wanted to be able to get it, they could, that'd be incredible. But, that's evolved into really the thought of, hey, I want everybody in the world to have access to this. Especially, our markets, we get spoiled in California, but I come out to other markets and I see what's available and I'm like, wow, like, man, and it's so expensive, and it's not really a good representation of cannabis and what it can do. And you know, it's like, hey, if I can get somebody to try our stuff somewhere else in the world, and like, you know, I don't know how many times, but if you never smoke Kush and I turn you on to Kush, you will never be the same. And that's happened time and time again, man. And people like, I used to remember like when there wasn't a lot of it, I would, you know, give it to somebody because he's a friend of, you know, or he's the brother, sister, whatever. And I'm like, look, I can only hook you up. I can't hook all your friends up. I don't have enough, so please don't smoke out everybody, you know? I get a call a few days later, dude, what's up? I need more of that. And I'm like, I never had like a huge facility back in the day. I had a bunch of houses that turned into more houses and turned into, we were so stretched thin, you're like, okay, this isn't working. But you know, there were other groups in LA doing it at that time. And it was cool, man. Like we all kind of reunite now. It's like, oh, you know, it was cool. It's like we've gone through a kind of a generation now, a couple generations of this. And this is the new time right now. This is the time, it's like, okay, we got licensed now. This is now the new chapter. So it really is kind of the beginning of the next chapter now, where federal legalization will come in. And you know, where does everybody fit in, you know? And I'm a grower, man. I'm a breeder, I'm a grower, and you know, I'm a cannabis enthusiast. And you know, we're gonna do this until, you know, hopefully I'm 80, you know, or 90. I'll have a garden, you know? Yeah, man, I mean, there's no retiring for us, it's our lifestyle. Like if I was rich, I would just build a sick ass grow room in my house. I mean, it would be like, I have 1,000 lighter, you know, at the house, you know, I could do that. Maybe 120 lights actually. No, but I mean, seriously, like we'd never stop, you know, we'd never stop. I'm back here in Florida. I go visit the Flowery facility, the cultivation facility, and it's, you know, it's rocking so hard that, you know, I consult and build facilities too. I've had plenty of my own, and it's not the scale of the place, it's the people involved, and there's like a positivity and an energy there from people working. You can feel it. It's ultimately one of the most important elements because you can't just like buy that. And it must be something in the way that they all treat each other from top to bottom. And so that's like probably the most important element to grow the kind of cannabis at top shelf cannabis that like I'm hoping that, you know, my partners would grow. But I already knew that. I wouldn't have come into this not knowing that Brian is an outstanding cultivator. But I didn't know what to expect, and I was, you know, really impressed with every member I met there. The fact they have a quality control guy, his whole job is just to cure correctly, shows the understanding of, I guess, the ownership, listening to the specialists that they have around them. That's a critical point of, I would say, that's a critical point in the relationship chain, is if upper management can listen to what the team needs and then provide them with the tools they need to succeed. And then, you know, you see it like, okay, cool, they have everything on point. Everything's on lock from beginning to end, and I see how sticky the weed is and how perfect each bud is, and the way that they only put out the certain buds in certain categories, and they're very aware of how to trim it, how the trimmers hold it, how they, you know, how they package it. They're very gentle with it. And that's what's needed, because if not, it's, you know, you can downgrade a perfect crop easily within, you know, 24 hours with a crew that doesn't know how to handle it correctly. So, yeah, my hat's off, man. Like, it's an honor to be a part of this group. I've been rocking this same cut that I got since '96. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about earlier, I mean, it's like anybody who's close to me understands that, like, you know, I have this garden, and this garden contains all of my genetics, and obviously my main girl, is the original OG. Ask my wife, she knows, yeah. She's like, oh, you got all the plants, you know, all the time. And I make clones constantly. It's like you could go through my photo album, I have like 75,000 pictures, and every 2 or 3, 4 weeks, I'm making clones throughout the whole thing. I do it like almost subconsciously now. I'm constantly growing plants up as big as I can, and then cutting back and making cuts and starting over again. And I won't kill the moms until those are rooted and transplanted, so I have no chance of really losing it. And of course I have friends that have it, but I don't, necessarily, I want to make sure that I always have. I've been the guy too that like when everybody loses it, they come back and get it from me. So there are multiple brands out there that are heavy hitters in this industry that have lost the Kush, and they call me and I give it back to them because it's all out of love. And we're here to share. So we're here to uplift each other. I know everybody has, it's easy to say, it's harder to do, but I've always been gracious about giving this plant out to the right people, And dude, it's come back to me tenfold in my life, Yeah, bro. So
We're happy to be here and help.
yeah, brother. Yeah, we kind of need each other. I mean, I feel like we do, I believe we do. Like I can't come to Florida and do what you guys are doing. For me, it would be impossible. And I feel like, you need to pick the right partners as well that have the same chemistry and the same, type of vibe. And then it's like sky's the limit, It's really just a unique thing though. It's a rare occasion. So that's why I say, man, it's like I come out here and I meet you guys, I'm like, oh, right. I've met some of the team, but meeting people in person is obviously like, yeah, man. Yeah, that weed. Brian is an outstanding grower. I'll say this. Brian at the Flowery is at top probably 3 growers in the country, if not the top grower in the country at scale right here doing this. There's something special in there. That's what makes it like the cornerstone kind of modern day cannabis. People still grow it, they still use it in breeding. And here I heard that we tested over 4% on terpenes. 4%, that's impressive. I'm like blown away. I can't wait to, like tell people about that. It's like, yeah, oh yeah. Well, hey, anybody that is checking this out right now, 4% plus terpenes, tell your friends, you want to try the real OG Kush, you come down to the Flowery, they're just crushing it out here. And we've been smoking, I got some yesterday and I think we've almost finished it, so. Hey, think about this, when you go and you're buying OG, if you come to Florida and or if you're in Florida and you're a patient and you've never tried OG Kush before, this is the OG Kush that you hear about in all the hip hop songs, in all of the movies, on the show Weeds, on all of these. You could probably look up on the internet, it's probably been mentioned a million times in like entertainment and media. This is the one that certain artists I know in LA, like they won't go into the studio unless they have it, and it's because it's inspiring. This is truly like the artist's weed, and if you want to feel something that, you want to feel the real OG that you've heard about, this is it. This is certifiable from me, Josh D. This is the real OG.
Yeah. Such a natural.
Thanks, bro. Thank you, man, for giving me the space to do it. Thanks, man. Yeah, Brian. Yeah, good stuff, dude.
Careful the microphone.
Really? Thanks, Alex.